Some breaking news to bring you. President Putin appears to have broken his silence on the apparent death of Prigozhin and the plane crash, because we are hearing from Reuters that Putin sends his condolences to Prigozhin, the founder of Russia's Wagner group. He sends his condolences to Prigozhin's family, just to caveat that by saying this is what we're hearing from Reuters. The Reuters reports go on to say that Putin says, "I've known Prigozhin since the 90s. We will look at what investigators say." And Putin says Prigozhin was a talented businessman. And expertise will take time. So presumably saying there that it will take time to establish, based on that investigation, looking at what investigators say. But this, again, just to reiterate, this is coming from Reuters, who are reporting that this is what Putin's saying. And of course, this is after Putin made no mention of Prigozhin or the plane crash when he spoke a few hours ago at a summit via video link. So this is the first mention that Russian President Vladimir Putin appears to have made of the plane crash and of Prigozhin. And according to Reuters, Putin has sent his condolences to Prigozhin's family. Well, let's speak now to our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. Frank, now this suggestion that it was a missile being reported by Reuters, which we brought when it broke a little while ago, that's apparently from a US source.
Yeah, this is an unnamed US official who has said this, and there's still, I think, a fair degree of confusion over this, because British defence sources that I spoke to earlier this morning, and that was some hours ago, thought it was more likely to have been a device on board the plane. I don't think there's any question that it was an accident. Planes, modern planes like that, just simply don't fall out of the air. The other thing is that if it was a surface-to-air missile, the chances are that the plane would have been blown up and blown apart, or at least disintegrated high up in the air. As it was, we saw it spiralling out of control, trailing smoke in that video, but we're still intact. So I'm not sure that I would go with the idea that it was shot down by a missile, but we may never know, because if you agree with the assumption that is held in most Western capitals that this was an act of assassination, then the very state, Russia, that is carrying out the investigation are the ones who are suspected of being behind this. But that said, there is no proof of that. So President Putin has said we're going to have to wait for the investigation, but it's their investigation. It's not a neutral, independent one coming in from outside. We're not talking about Swiss investigators crawling over the black box and looking at forensic details. It's Russia investigating what happened on its own soil, as it is entitled to do.
And Frank, in the meantime, speculation continues, and other theories as to how the plane fell out of the air aren't being ruled out. For example, a bomb being on board.
Well, that's what I mean about a device being put on board. I think that's probably far more likely, because whatever it was not strong enough, was not powerful enough to blow it out of the air. Now, Russia has got very powerful air defences. They're not perfect, as we've seen by the amount of Ukrainian drones that are penetrating Moscow's airspace and getting into the capital. This plane was brought down roughly halfway between Moscow and St. Petersburg, where it was flying to. Interestingly, there were two planes linked to Yevgeny Prigozhin that are in play, as it were. This one was brought down. A second one has recently landed in Baku, the Azerbaijani capital, but there's no suggestion that Prigozhin was on board that. So Russia hasn't yet produced any visible proof of Prigozhin's death, but they are saying he was definitely on board, as was Dmitry Utkin, who was the co-founder of the Wagner group back in 2014.
Frank, thank you. That's our security correspondent, Frank Gardner there. And just to reiterate some of the information we brought you that broke in the past couple of minutes, that has been verified by the BBC now. This is comments made by Putin, commenting for the first time on the plane crash that is presumed to have killed Prigozhin. Putin said Prigozhin was a talented person and expressed his condolences to the families of everyone killed. Well, as we've been hearing over the past few minutes and hours, there has been endless speculation on social media about the crash, and Olga Robinson